All right, everyone, I'm back. I want to do a quick video today, a few days before Poland goes to the polls, this Sunday for the second round of the presidential election. I want to talk about that a little bit, and then I'll be back next week to discuss the. But first, some news on the election. This Sunday, voters in Poland go to the polls not just to choose a president, but to choose whether democracy gets one more chance. Outgoing President Andrzej Duda, whose decade in office has been defined by judicial purges and legislative rubber stamping, is finally, mercifully, term limited out of office. But don't be fooled, he's not leaving the stage so much as handing off the script. His hand-picked successor, Karol Nawrocki, a conservative historian turned political weapon, is the candidate of continuity. Continuity of court packing, media intimidation, and European Union antagonism. He's not the fringe, he's the plan. Now his opponent, the Civic Coalition's Rafał Trzaskowski, Warsaw mayor, pro-European moderate, and perhaps the last firewall against the entrenchment of illiberalism. The polls are razor thin, the stakes are razor sharp. And as Poland prepares to vote, Russia prepares to meddle once again. According to Polish intelligence, the Kremlin's hybrid war playbook is in full swing. Fake emails, phony scandals, disinformation campaigns, all aimed at disrupting the election. But here's the twist that might be hard for some to understand. Karol Nawrocki is no Putin stooge. Just like any good, patriotic Polish person, he's vocally anti-Russian. He would never kiss the Kremlin's ring. And that's exactly why Russia wants him to win. Because Nawrocki isn't meant to be Moscow's puppet. He's meant to be their wrecking ball. A nationalist who despises Brussels, distrusts the European Union, and would gladly see Poland retreat from the collective strength that frustrates Putin at every turn. This is not about installing a pro-Russian leader. It's about electing an anti-European one. Because for Russia, breaking the EU is better than invading it. And a Polish president who is hostile to European integration, human rights law, and democratic accountability, well, that's priceless. Next, the kind of moment that authoritarian regimes fear more than elections. Earlier this month, in a nail-biting wire-to-wire contest, Romania elected Nicosor Dan as its next president. A liberal reformer, a former mathematician, and a man with more spreadsheets than slogans, and, for one fleeting, shining moment, a symbol. Because Dan didn't just defeat his opponent, he survived him. His rival, a far-right pro-Kremlin nationalist, parroted Moscow's talking points and peddled the same xenophobic, anti-democratic bile that has become the calling card of the global authoritarian right. The win was narrow, the margin was paper thin, but it was enough to electrify liberals across the continent, especially in Poland, where the stakes in this Sunday's presidential election are, if anything, even higher. And so, Nicosor Dan boarded a plane to Warsaw, not for diplomacy, not for ceremony, but for something deeper: solidarity. He met with Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk, and he then endorsed Rafał Trzaskowski, the pro-European liberal candidate. And then he marched through the streets of Warsaw, shoulder to shoulder with Polish citizens fighting for the same things he had just fought for in Romania: independence, pluralism, and freedom from Kremlin-backed nationalism. Make no mistake, this was not a symbolic gesture. This was a strategic alliance, frontline, pan-European struggle between liberal democracy and a coordinated, well-funded, transnational far right. Eastern Europe has been written off far too often. It's often been dismissed, often as the weak flank of Europe's values. But in the past week, that weak flank punched back. Nico Sordan's presence in Warsaw was not just a morale booster, it was a declaration that the liberal movements of Eastern Europe are not isolated, not disillusioned, and not giving up. They are watching each other, supporting each other, fighting for each other. And if Poland is to pull back from the brink, it won't be because of polling models or clever ads. It'll be because people like Don stood up, showed up, and reminded the world that freedom doesn't defend. All right, I got one more story for you guys. And let me make something let me make something clear from the outset. And this story really annoyed me. But imagine for a moment if a Polish official had wandered into CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Committee, in Dallas in, let's say, 2020, and this Polish official endorsed Joe Biden, Donald Trump would have burst a blood vessel. Half of Fox News would have been live from Gitmo, and Marjorie Taylor Greene would have declared war on the European Union, probably. Um, but here we are today, right now. And in this upside down, lawless funhouse that is Trump world, election interference isn't something to be stopped. It's something to be exported. And on a stage built to glorify authoritarian nostalgia and gilded grievance, Trump Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, the former dog-killing governor of South Dakota, took to the CPAC Poland podium and did something we'd rightly call foreign election interference if the Kremlin tried it. Kristi Noem endorsed the right-wing Polish presidential candidate Karol Nawrocki on Polish soil at a CPAC-funded circus in Warsaw this past week. This is not just a breach of diplomatic decorum. It's not merely a bad look. It's a coordinated ideological injection of Trumpist values into sovereign electoral processes overseas. And it's not the first time. Noam's endorsement, which was likely scripted by Steve Bannon's spirit and rubber stamped by the Kremlin's playbook, isn't about Poland. It's about the global creep of authoritarian nationalism wrapped in the American flag. Let me be clear, this is election interference, and not the alleged mythical kind that Trump shrieks about in every courtroom across America. No, this is real, documented, live on camera, and intentional. Ask yourself, what would happen if Emmanuel Macron flew to Milwaukee and said, I endorse Joe Biden and I hope he crushes Donald Trump in 2024? The entire MAGA movement would implode in apoplectic rage, demanding tribunals and retribution left and right. Yet when a washed out former governor turned secret police chief marches into another nation's electoral process and tries to tip the scales for a fellow right wing autocrat, silence. Or worse, applause. And why? Because the Trump movement has no ideology beyond power, no respect for sovereignty, no sense of shame, and increasingly, no borders. CPAC is now basically just a traveling roadshow of authoritarian cosplay. It's held in Hungary, it's held in Brazil, it's held in Mexico, and now it's held in Poland, where democracy hangs in the balance. and the MAGA virus is now being sold as a cure. What Kristi Noem did wasn't just inappropriate, it was un-American. The founding fathers didn't spill blood to become a colonial export brand for demagogues abroad. They fought to end the tyranny of foreign interference, not become its franchise model. And so tonight I ask if it's election interference when 60 Minutes slightly edits an interview they did with Kamala Harris. What is it when a Trump lackey flies 4,700 miles, give or take, to shove her arm elbow deep into another country's plate? It's not patriotism, it's not diplomacy, and it's not leadership. It's sabotage, plain and simple. All right, I got one more thing for you guys before we close out this episode. I recorded it last night, but I woke up this morning and I decided I wanted to change a few things. So this is a second take of this piece. To wrap things up, I want to bring my audience and appeal directly to the voters in Poland from the very, very, very bottom of my heart. I doubt there are many Polish people, citizens, who can vote in this weekend's election watching this. But if even one person who can vote watches this, I think this is worth it. So, an appeal to the voters of Poland. Poland stands at the edge of a precipice. Again, this weekend, in the second round of your presidential election, the choice could not be clearer or graver. You must vote for Rafał Trzaskowski, not because he is perfect, not because he is the messiah of your political dreams, but because if you do not, if you stay home, if you sulk or sigh or sneer and refuse to vote for the so-called lesser of two evils, you will have handed Poland back to the very forces that spent nearly a decade dismantling its democracy brick by brick, court by court, and law by law. Yes, you have a choice. But no, you do not have the luxury of neutrality. This election is about far more than personalities or party lines. This is a moment of reckoning for Poland's soul. Do you choose freedom or submission? A modern, open, pro-European future, or a return to the grim authoritarianism that haunted the years from 2015 to 2023? You remember those years, the oppression of the LGBT community, the muzzling of independent media, the near theocratic marriage of state and church, the slow, suffocating rollback of freedoms that millions of Poles, your parents, your grandparents, fought and bled and died to defend. Let's be clear. A vote for Trzaskowski is a vote to break that cycle. It is a vote to support the hard-won reforms of Prime Minister Donald Tusk's centrist liberal government. Reforms that have been stalled, been vetoed, and been sabotaged at every turn by the current conservative president. Reforms meant to rebuild the rule of law, to restore judicial independence, to re-anchor Poland in the democratic traditions of Europe. Because make no mistake, a victory for Karol Nawrocki and the dark extreme right forces he represents would drag Poland back toward the authoritarianism our ancestors struggled for generations to defeat. Was all of that sacrifice in vain? Let us not forget what it took to get here. Your grandparents, your great-grandparents, they resisted the Nazi occupation with courage so fierce it echoed across the globe. They defied tyranny when defiance meant death. They fought in the Warsaw Uprising. They sheltered neighbors. They endured ghettos, firing squads, forced labor, and exile. And when the Nazis were driven out, the next oppressor arrived. The Soviet-backed communist regime silenced dissent, strangled civil liberties, imprisoned intellectuals and workers alike. And again, Poles rose up. In Gdańsk, in Poznan, in Łomża, in the factories, in shipyards, in underground presses, in solidarity, in the streets. For decades, they fought for a future where freedom wasn't just a dream, but a reality. That dream, their dream, is what's on the ballot now. And if the presidency falls into the hands of Nawrocki and the far right, that dream will be hijacked. Again, let me speak now to a very specific group, the Polish left, to the supporters of Adrian Zandberg, to the young progressives, the eco-socialists, the feminists, and the egalitarians. I understand your hesitation. I understand your disappointment. Trzaskowski is no leftist, and you wanted someone who speaks more directly to your vision for Poland. But this isn't about ideological purity. This is about survival. This is about ensuring that the country remains a place where your vision, even if not in power today, can still be spoken, debated, and pursued tomorrow. Because here's the raw truth. In a two-candidate race, refusing to vote for the lesser evil is not neutral. It's surrender. It's complicity. It is, in effect, a vote for the greater evil. And make no mistake, Paweł Nawrocki and the reactionary forces that back him are that greater evil. You've seen what they do when they have power. You know what they will do again. If you sit this out, don't tell yourself you're taking the high road. Don't pretend abstention is resistance, because it isn't. It's acquiescence. It's an invitation for the worst elements in Polish political life to seize control by default. Young Poles, your future is on the ballot. Woman of Poland, your autonomy is on the ballot. The LGBT community, your safety and dignity are on the ballot. Poland's place in Europe, its democratic credibility, its very identity as a modern state, all of it is on the ballot. So I say this with all the urgency I can muster. Vote. Vote for Rafał Trzaskowski. Not because you agree with him on everything, but because you agree that democracy matters, that progress matters, that freedom matters. You don't have to love the man, but you must stop the nightmare of Nawrocki before it begins. Because if you don't, they will win. And Poland, your Poland, our Poland, will pay the price for generations. All right. That's all I have for this episode. I'll be back with more next week, talking about the results of this Sunday's election.